What's going on, guys? Welcome back to WWE Network and Chill, where I, Graham G.S. Matthews, break down all the original content I watch on the WWE Network. And today we're talking the September 14th, 2020 edition of Raw Talk. I will say right off the bat, Raw Talk's been back now for about 3.5 months, since early June, for the entire summer practically. And I've already found that Talking Smack, even only being back for 4 episodes since late last month, is already infinitely better than Raw Talk in terms of the guests they have on. It's the same thing as it was 3 or 4 years ago when the shows were originally around. Now, granted, Raw Talk wasn't a regular show back in late 2016, early 2017. I think they only brought it around after every Raw pay-per-view, as opposed to every week after Raw. And it is great to have a platform for the superstars to speak and further their feuds and stories and whatever, give viewers more of a reason to care about them beyond what we see on Raw. Like, I thought what we got with Aleister Black on this episode was great. But a lot of what we see sometimes is just completely pointless. Now, it is good for the occasional funny moment with, like, the R-Truth and Shayna Baszler. But we've seen that so much between the bump and this show in the last month or so, where I just don't really care anymore. Like, they try to recreate the whole fish thing with Truth and Baszler, and it's just not that funny, really, to me anymore. So I thought this was one of the weaker episodes in recent memory. But again, I thought the timing was interesting, just because Talking Smack has been consistently killing it, for the most part, since coming back about a month ago. You know, The Miz was great when he was hosting the show initially. They brought back Xavier Woods. He's been great. They announced some breaking news on the show in the last couple of weeks for SummerSlam and for Payback, and Mandy Rose being traded to Raw was announced on Talking Smack last week. So it's been a pretty prominent show in the last couple of weeks. Raw Talk, it doesn't really feel like anything of note happens. From a character development standpoint, it is an effective show. It is an effective tool in, again, giving viewers more of a reason to care about some of these characters, some of these superstars. But this show, I thought, was just painfully boring. For the 25 minutes they had, and the show usually goes 25 minutes, I thought this show was pretty weak. So again, like, for the first 5 minutes, maybe they did this on Talking Smack, and I just don't remember, but they wasted the first 5 minutes of this show. Charlie Caruso, who also desperately wants to be R-Truth's best friend, they wasted 5 minutes, Caruso and Truth, discussing Retribution, the ending to Raw, with Truth saying it might be an inside job. They discussed Dominic and Seth Rollins in the steel cage match. Caruso said that Rollins may not have any morals anymore, and Truth thinks that he's lost it. Listen, I know they got to recap some of what happened on Raw, but this was completely pointless. I don't give a fuck about what these two have to say about what happened on Raw. The guests are really what keeps this show together. Kayla Braxton and Xavier have great chemistry. I could see a show, like, for example, Renee Young and Daniel Bryan. If it was just them two on Talking Smack, it was bound to be entertaining. Truth is an entertaining guy. But him and Caruso, I just don't really give a shit about the chemistry there. We literally just saw the ending to Raw. So why would we need to see it replayed again? In the sense that, can we speculate as to who might be behind it? They're not going to say the obvious suspects. They're not going to say Mia Yim or Dominik Dijakovic, because when it is revealed to be them, it's going to be less of a surprise if WWE's own people say that. So I thought that was just a total waste of 5 minutes. If you watched the episode, just skip over the first 5 minutes and skip ahead to Zelina Vega. Maybe. And I say maybe just because I feel like Zelina Vega is a great character. She's a great talker. Maybe it's just the idea of her going for the Raw Women's Championship that I don't like. And listen, it is nice to have fresh faces in the Raw Women's Championship picture for a change. We had Mickie James go for the gold last night. That was great. A good match, unfortunately ruined by a bad finish and a bad botch right before that with the kick missing Asuka completely, and Asuka selling it anyway. That was Bush League. Zelina Vega, though, unlike Mickie James isn't the most credible. I mean, she's a fucking 6-time champion. She has accomplishments. She's accomplished. She's won a lot of championships. She hasn't won a lot of matches lately. But Mickie James is still Mickie James. Zelina Vega's never won anything. She's literally only won 2 matches on her own ever in WWE in the last 3.5, 4 years. And both matches were against Lana about a year ago, or actually 2 years ago. So who gives a shit about Zelina Vega in the Raw Women's Championship picture? Is it different? Yes. But do I take her seriously as a threat to Asuka? Even less so than Mickie. So why the fuck should I care? Bianca Belair is a fresh face too, but she would make more sense. Because she's, as far as I can remember, has gone undefeated on Raw since showing up back in April. So why wouldn't she get the next shot? Why isn't she stepping up to Asuka instead of Vega? Who cares? She says that, Zelina that is, says that her actions on Raw this week spoke for themselves and slapping Asuka. She says that she's ready to be champion. Yeah, okay. She said that she learned from the best in Andrade and Garza, which is why she's ready to take down Asuka. Interesting note that I actually completely forgot about until I looked it up earlier when I was looking up Zelina Vega's win-loss record dating back to NXT. I believe her first WWE match, unless she wrestled before this and I just don't remember, but I'm pretty sure her first match in WWE was against Asuka in late 2016, and that was when she was dating Austin Aries. Austin Aries was there at the time, so it makes sense as to why she would have gotten that shot. But she actually faced Asuka in a quick squash, got her ass beat. But I don't know if they would go back to that, because she wasn't even going by Zelina Vega at the time. She wouldn't go by that name until she paired up with Andrade in mid-2017. It's possible, though, so I thought that was worth bringing up. But on the subject of Andrade and Angel Garza, Caruso and Truth ask her, are you done with those two? It kind of seemed like you stormed off. You were done with their bullshit, blah, blah, blah. Are you done with them? Like, what's going on? What's your relationship right now with Andrade and Angel Garza? And she doesn't answer the question, so I assume WWE doesn't even know right now. I assume if the Asuka singles push for Zelina doesn't exactly work out, which I'm assuming it won't, it's going to be Lana 2.0, and she is a better wrestler than Lana, but she's also just not a great wrestler in general. And as a talker, she's just way better. She's a much better manager than she would be as a wrestler. And I think a lot of people would agree with that. So, with that being said, I assume that WWE hasn't officially cemented her split from them. Just in case the singles push doesn't work out, she can go back with Angel, or she can go back with Andrade, or whoever, you know. So, that was what it was. But she also can't wait, she says this multiple times, she can't wait to prove everyone wrong by winning that championship, which, of course, she won't. So they then welcome on Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler, the current WWE Women's Tag Team Champions. They discuss their domination on Raw, laying out Natalya and Lana, putting Lana through a table. Which, honestly, and I'm not the first one to say this in terms of I wouldn't normally suggest this, but I would not be surprised if Lana getting put through a table had something to do with her husband Miro, Rusev, showing up on Dynamite last week. Usually I call conspiracy and I call bullshit on that type of stuff, on those conspiracy theories. But, why would Jackson Baszler attack the heels anyway? That seemed kind of pointless to me. Why Lana and not Natalya? You know what I mean? So, I could believe that, absolutely. But this was just the worst part of the show. They bicker back and forth. I don't give a fuck about Nia and Shayna as the tag team champions, so I really could just not have cared less about this. They've dragged the R-Truth Shayna thing, the Shayna Baszler R-Truth shit into the ground, so it's just hard to care about that for me. The whole fish thing, it was funny at first. They did it another time or two. It was kind of funny then. Now it's just dumb, because they've run it into the ground for the last month and a half now. So Baszler acts frustrated, and I thought that was kind of funny. But other than that, this was just stupid. They took shots at the Riot Squad saying, and Nia brings this up, and it's true. She said, yeah, we won the tag team titles on one of her first time. It actually was their first time teaming at the Payback pay-per-view, and they became champions. Whereas the Riot Squad, they've been together on and off now for such a long time. They never won the tag team titles. So why would this time be any different? Which, honestly, not a bad point. Not a bad point at all. So anyway, Jax points out that Baszler lost in last week's handicap match. Nia didn't. That's because the lights flickered, and that's what cost Baszler the match. Nia actually teased going after Truth's 24/7 championship, and no thank you, is all I'm going to say to that. So for the final guest, they welcome on Aleister Black, and Truth is acting all funny, saying, oh, you're a vampire, got to go back in your coffin, I loved you on Twilight. And Black is not amused. He's like, listen, don't be funny, I'll kick the shit out of you. And again, Truth is great, but this is when they need a serious side. Xavier's entertaining, but the guy can also play the serious card too. Truth doesn't really seem to have that in him. That's the issue with having Truth as a host on this show. The guy's great, he's entertaining, he's funny, but you need to have someone serious in this role. Not fucking R-Truth. So Black actually took off the, not eye patch, what would you call that? The thing around his head that covered his eye, his injured eye, quote unquote. So he showed off his eye for the first time since he was attacked by Seth a couple of months ago. and all we see is like a black contact. So he still has an eye. There's nothing there. There's just his eye with a black so his pupil is completely black. So I don't know if it's going to stay like that, if it's temporary. I assume at some point WWE is just going to forget about it and move on. But that's what he has in his eye. If you're wondering, it's not scarred. It's not like there's a giant scratch over it like fucking Nick Fury or some shit. It's literally just his eye with a black contact in there. That's all it is. So don't be disgusted. So he basically talks about why he targeted Kevin Owens in the first place, saying that Kevin Owens' negligence is why he's here to begin with. That Kevin Owens pretends to act like this big family man, he's a father, but he's turned on practically everyone over the last fucking 5 years. He turned on Sami Zayn, he turned on the New Day, he turns on people left and right, constantly. You know what I mean? So, Alistair's not exactly wrong. So he calls him a fraud. And he said that he probably would have won that match, and Caruso's like, oh, when will this thing end between you two? You've fought each other, you've been in Raw Underground, you faced off tonight. And Alistair says, it probably would have been done tonight had I just beaten him, but the lights flickered, they, distracted me, so I lost. And he questions if, because the lights flickered because of Retribution, if Kevin Owens is part of Retribution. And they say, well, listen, they were at the end of the show, why would... It's not just you, like they were on the show multiple times. But Alistair says, well, why would the lights flicker right before I'm about to win the match, as opposed to like before or after or during in the middle? Why right before I'm about to win? So he's out to seek answers. He says it's too much of a coincidence. And when Caruso says, can we end this thing between you two before it gets ugly? He just says no. So that's it. He doesn't care if it has to get ugly, as long as it means getting Retribution on Kevin Owens. And that was it. So I thought this was a really weak episode by recent Raw Talk standards. The show's usually good. I don't want to make it sound like it's a terrible show. I usually enjoy it. The truth stuff, though, this is why I thought Samoa Joe was great, because the guy can be serious, but he could also be entertaining, too. Truth is just all entertainment. He just doesn't know when to stop. And Caruso's just annoying. Caleb Braxton's a lot better, and Xavier Woods is just much better in the role than R-Truth, in my opinion. So, yeah, Talking Smack, even though it's been only back for 4 weeks, is already superior, in my opinion. The Aleister Black stuff was solid. Nia Jax and Shayna just said a whole lot of fucking nothing. They were talking about Instagram at one point. Who cares? Who gives a shit? Like, it was just a whole lot of nothing. That was a waste of time. The Zelina Vega stuff was fine, but I just don't give a fuck about her as the number one contender. So a very weak edition of Raw Talk. No real reason to seek it out. If you do want to watch one thing from the show, check out the Aleister Black segment, which I thought was very good, for the most part. And that was it. And I hope we can hear more from Aleister on the show itself. I don't know if we've actually heard from him yet on Raw as to why he turned on Kevin Owens. We're only really led to believe why he attacked him. I think you're supposed to kind of fill in the blanks, and the commentators have mentioned it, maybe Kevin Owens. I don't know if we've heard from Aleister himself, though. So hopefully they can kind of take some of what he said here and bring that to Raw. So anyway, check this out right now on the WWE Network, the September 14th, 2020 edition of Raw Talk. As for me, folks, be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. Find me on the socials down below in the description box. Have a great one, guys. Check out all my other Raw Talk reviews as well. Forgot to mention that in the description box down below. And hit that little bell button to be notified every time a new video is uploaded here to the channel. Have a great one, guys. I'm Graham G. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.